We'd like to welcome all listening or viewing this meeting of the Kansas City Board of Public Utilities, whether in person or through technology. This meeting is being recorded by both video and audio. During the visitors' comment section of the agenda, community members who wish to speak to the board will be asked to provide name and address and will then have 3 minutes to speak. Members of the public using Zoom that wish to address the board need to use the raise hand feature at the bottom of the application or window to signal that they wish to address the board during the visitor comment section. In addition, there will be a public comment section after the general manager's staff reports. During this section, the public may comment on this evening's presentation. Members of the public connected by phone only need to press *9 to indicate they wish to address the board in the visitors' comment section. Those attending in person should sign up on the sign up sheet that's located near the entry. Now, comments are limited to 3 minutes and should be directed to the board. As these comments are public, the board cautions visitors to not disclose confidential account information or information on an account that is not in their name. Staff will not provide individual account information or history in an open meeting. As always, the public may also email or call the BPU with any concerns. The agenda and presentation may be found on our website, the BPU website, or if you are using Zoom, they will appear on your screen. As a reminder, this is a business meeting of the Board of Directors, and we will conduct the meeting accordingly. The following rules apply to this meeting. Every person in this room will act respectfully towards each other. Personal attacks and accusations towards any person will not be tolerated. State your specific issue to the board only. We'll then direct staff's involvement, and attendees shall refrain from side discussion or individual commentary that interferes with speakers or other attendees at this meeting. If side discussion is necessary, please take it outside of the boardroom. If any of the rules above are breached during the meeting, that individual is subject to removal from the boardroom. So my name is David Haley. A member at large, position number 2, and the board vice president. And other members of our board and staff include William Johnson, our general manager, Tom Groneman, the 2nd District and board president, who's attending via Zoom tonight, Stevie Wakes Sr., 1st District, and our board secretary, Brett Parker, 3rd District, who too will be attending via Zoom this evening, Mary Gonzalez, who's our member at large, position number 1, and Rose Mulvaney Henry, member at large, position 3. Angela Lawson is our acting chief counsel. Please remember to put your phones on silent. Please also be aware that the microphones are really sensitive and can pick up and record comments that are made anywhere in the room. So now, before we begin our meeting, would you please rise and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ms. Lawson, if you would please take roll.
Roll call. Parker. Gonzalez.
Here.
Groneman.
Groneman and Parker are online. Parker was waiting.
Okay. I'll call Groneman one.
Present.
Okay. Parker.
Here.
Gonzalez.
Here.
Haley.
Present.
Wakes.
Here.
Mulvaney Henry.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Before I ask for a motion to approve the regular session agenda of tonight of May 1st, 2024, are there any comments on the agenda?
This is Rose. I move to approve this evening's agenda.
I second.
All right, if you would please, Ms. Lawson, call the roll.
Roll call, Parker,
Aye.
Gonzalez,
Aye.
Groneman,
Aye.
Haley,
Aye,
Wakes,
Aye.
Mulvaney, Henry.
Aye.
That motion carries.
thank you. Before I ask for the motion to approve the minutes of the work session of April 17th of 2024, are there any comments?
Move to approve the minutes of the work session of April 17th.
Second.
All right, Ms. Lawson?
Roll call, Parker,
Aye.
Gonzalez,
Aye.
Groneman,
Aye.
Haley.
Aye.
Wakes,
Aye.
Mulvaney, Henry.
Aye.
That motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, and finally, before I ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the regular session of April 17th, 2024, are there any comments?
This is Rose. So moved.
Wake second.
All right, Ms. Lawson?
Roll call, Parker,
Aye.
Gonzalez,
Aye.
Groneman,
Aye.
Haley,
Aye,
Wakes,
Aye.
Mulvaney, Henry.
Aye.
That motion carries.
thank you very much. I'd like to turn the meeting over to our general manager, Mr. Johnson, if you could, please, Bill Johnson.
Thank you. Chris, is there anyone signed up to speak tonight? Thank you. So I'd ask CC Harlan to come up to the mic, state your name, address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
So my name is CC Harlan. I live in Wyandotte County and, I recently requested my final bill, which, just included a total balance at the end. I then asked for an invoice itemizing the charges on that last bill. I was contacted back and told that they were going to forward it to customer service, to which I got a breakdown, not the final bill, but just her breakdown of what had occurred. And she said that my water meter was stuck and that my water meter was stuck for 10 months and they changed it out in January of 2022. Now, the only problem that I have with that is in January and February of 2022, when I brought this to the board, it was my electric meter that was actually changed out at that time. Maybe I'll change both, but it was actually the electric meter. I brought that to the board and I talked to them on customer service concerning that. They said that it was whatever reason I was using extra electric at that time. But now she said it's my water meter that was changed out and she did a breakdown. I didn't receive the actual bills to show if it was electric or water. But the problem that I have with that is I was never not charged the base pay for water. I've never utilized more than the base pay for water. Y'all have always charged me the access charge and the customer charge for water. So therefore, if I've only used the base pay for the entire time that I've been a customer of yours since 2004, then even if the water was stuck, I paid the bill. So, and this is again what your customer service broke down to me by email, and I included Mr. Johnson in on that email. So I will really like to rectify that final bill. And if it is water, then so be it, and it's in writing. So if it's a water bill and y'all know that I've paid my water bill and everything, y'all never stopped charging me for the 10 months. Y'all did not charge me. So if I've already paid it, then we need to rectify that bill, please. And thank you.
So Ms. Harlan, I was out of the office for a short
know.
period of time, so.
Yeah.
And you're correct, you did copy me on it. I did see some communication traffic. I think back to you, if you allow me tomorrow to get caught up.
No problem.
Okay, appreciate it. Appreciate you being here. And you're the only one that signed up here to speak in person. And so Rob, is there anyone online to sign up to speak? There's no hands raised. Okay. So we move on to the next section, General Manager Staff Reports, and first person up to the podium is Randy Yachting. He'll give us our preliminary March 24 financials.
Good evening. Tonight I'm going to present the preliminary March financials. There's no approvals needed since these are preliminary results. So you'll get a packet after our audit's complete with the final financials for January, February, and March. So March was a pretty typical month for us, and comparing it to prior periods. Overall, when we look at our energy sales were down for the month. Year to date, for the three-month period, January, February, March, we're down 2.3%. Residential was down 2.5%, commercial was down about 0.5%, and industrial was down about 5% on our energy sales. On our water sales were up for the 3-month periods. 3.3%. We saw a slight increase in residential, a larger bump in commercial, about 8%. And our industrial sales were up for water about 1.5%. So converting those units to dollars and revenues, for just the month of March, we saw a 10% approximate increase in our revenues, and that was approximately 10% higher for electric over our budget, about 13% for water, higher than what we anticipated on our budget. Overall, like I said, 10.2% for just the month of March. Revenues year to date for the 3-month period are down or are relatively flat. It's a 0.03%. Comparing it to the prior year, and we're above our anticipated revenues for that we budgeted for about 1%. Just seeing there's a kind of a mixed bag. Residential's down, commercial's a little bit higher, industrial's down a little bit. It's been a pretty typical year. We had a cold spell in January, but other than that, everything is trending the way we'd anticipate it. Next slide. On the operating expenses, just for the month of March, month number 3, our operating expenses were down 16% combined, both electric and water, 4% for electric, 12% for water. We're 5.5% lower than what we anticipated on our O&M cost when we compare it to our budget, what we budgeted for. Looking at year-to-date operating expenses, we're 1.3% higher than what we compared to with the prior period last year in 23, and 2.7% higher than what we anticipated on our budget. Comparing our budget for electric, we're higher. Our operating expenses are higher about 5%. A lot of that's tied to our purchase power costs that we experienced in January. Water's down about 9%. Water's pretty much down across the board, most of their categories. Combined 2.7%. Next slide, we just take out the depreciation. This looks very similar to the previous slide. Operating expenses, when we take out the depreciation expense, is 1.1% and 2.6% when we compare to our budget, higher. Similar categories there. Electric purchase power is higher for the 3-month period. Fuel costs are pretty flat, although there are fewer burns than what we've seen in previous periods beyond 23. Production costs are lower, T&D costs are lower, across the board for both electric and water. Next slide. So our net income or our net change in net position, our revenues less expenses. For this year, we're $6.2 million. This is just for the month of March. And we had approximately $1 million loss last year at the same period in time. Comparing our budget to what we anticipated, our budget was 1.5% was what we anticipated on our net position. And we, like I mentioned, we're up 6.2% for the 6.2 million for the year. And year to date, similar results. Combined, our change in net position or our net income, like I say, is 8.6 million versus 7.9 million for last year. So approximately $500,000, $600,000 higher than what we had previously. And compared to our budget, approximately $400,000 higher than what we anticipated on our budget year to date. This just looks at our kind of our margin between our revenues and our operating expenses and our non-operating expenses between the two categories. We see, our revenues are higher by approximately, I have that number. I think it's about 2 million there. Difference between our revenues and our non-operating on the electric side. This is for the 3-month period. Next slide on the water. We saw a little bigger move. I'm sorry, that number previously was wrong. What I mentioned was, this is 2 million spread. That was about, I think, I can't see my graph. 50. Yeah, thank you. Next slide are looking at our average collections, basically the money that comes in the bank versus the money that goes out of the bank. Our average collections for the period were 1.7 million for month number 3. It's, pretty stable with what we've seen in the previous periods of last year of 23 and 22. Some of that's a little higher rates this year. We had a rate increase last year, so that went into effect. So we're having a little bit more collections on those, on the monies coming in the bank. Next slide. That's all right. Okay. The change, the money in versus the money out, were $2.3 million came in the bank in month number 3 versus 5.4 last year. So we anticipate that kind of, we look at those prior months, and month 4 and number 5 are usually negative numbers. So we anticipate the next 2 or 3 months being, more money going out than coming in until we hit that summer period. June, July, and August, September usually are the positive months. Next slide. So our overall cash position is calculated out at 83 days cash on hand. When we compare it to last year, we had 66 at the same period. Our fuel inventory on our balance sheet is valued at $10.7 million compared to last year. We had on the ground was approximately 8.9. Just looking at that information on a graph representing it, we see a slight uptick to 83 days from 80. We peaked at 103, so we'll probably build that back up over the next 2 or 3 months to the summer period comes in. So on the capital spend, very similar results as last year. We've expended about $6 million this year compared to last year. We had 6.6. We have about 91% of the budget remaining on our capital projects for the period. Next slide. And the final slide on our debt coverage, we're combined at 2.66 times on our March 2024 compared to 2.83 times for prior year. So it's dipped some. And that's with pilot. If we take the pilot out, we're at 1.94 compared to 2.11 last year. So with that, I'll entertain any questions if you have any. And like I mentioned earlier, there's no motion needed to approve these. These are just preliminary.
I have no questions, just want to comment. We used to having Lori present financials, just wanted to say we're gonna have to report to her that you did an excellent job. Appreciate it.
This is twice in the last couple months, so.
Thank you,
that's-
sir.
That's okay. I don't mind.
Thank you, Randy. So to the board, I want to point out one thing too. We'll correct the agenda to show 2024 instead of 2023.
Thank you.
Unless you want to make a motion, we'll just go ahead and do that. So
I didn't even see that.
Already.
Sorry.
Do you want to correct it
How does that work?
in the minutes for next? Do you want to, I mean, it's already in the book.
I'm sorry.
It's already in the book. We would have to correct it in the minutes for next. Is that what you're
I'll just let
asking?
the board know that we'll do that. So,
Thank you.
okay. All right. Next is an update on our water construction projects. There's a lot of things that a lot of projects that the water is working its way through. So I thought it'd be a good opportunity to bring the part of the whole water team, at least the engineering and operations team in. And Steve, how do you want to start? I see you. Chris, if you can come up to the mic. And lead us off in providing an update. I know you got others that want to come up and speak as well, all right?
Yeah, I do. Well, first off, let me thank you, Bill, for the introduction. And then also I want to say that tonight we have Brandon Sisk and Philip Brown with me tonight to talk a little bit about the projects that they're working on to give an update of the status. And we do appreciate the fact that we have an opportunity to talk about capital projects and review them and answer any questions from the board. I also want to say good evening to every board member here tonight and also to the BPU staff in attendance and also the public members that are here tonight. Before we get started with the actual detailed discussion of projects. All right, where are we at, Rob? Well, he may have to come up here and. This for some reason is not working.
It doesn't make sense. I got you.
You got me?
Yep.
All right, so before we get started with the actual detailed descriptions of the status, I want to visit a little bit with you about the type of projects that engineering and operations work on, and then talk a little bit about the funding of these projects. So typically we have UG Street and Public Works projects that we work on where there's a main relocation or some type of a main improvement that we do because of an aging infrastructure. We also work on KDOT highway projects and their bridge projects. And usually these projects are cash funded. They run about $1.5 to $2 million a year, and they're budgeted for cash projects. Then we have our developer projects, which are 100% funded by the developer for new water mains. They enter into agreements to do main extensions with us, and then they pay for all the development work. Then we have our larger projects that are really too high dollar cost to fund by cash. So they're usually funded by KDHE loan projects, and that's through the state revolving fund. And this year we actually have, you all are familiar that we have the grant projects from EPA and FEMA. They don't come around very often, so we're really very fortunate to be able to fund a couple of major projects with that money. Just to kind of give you an update of the current projects that we've been working on over the last 6 months. On the right side of the screen, we've kind of bolded kind of the status of what's happening with all these projects, but just to condense all that information, really what's happening is the projects are either currently under construction or the design is completed or they're going to be started here in the next couple of months. But here's some of them that you may be familiar with. Leavenworth Road and Hutton Road, we have a main replacement on that. Edwardsville is doing a street improvement project from 98 on 98th Street from Riverview to Kansas Avenue. KDOT is doing the 18th Street Bridge replacement, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a couple more slides. And then on the development side, we're finishing up on Margaritaville improvements, the American Royal, their main installation is going to start in June. And then we have a Edwardsville project, Highland Ridge at 4th and Edwardsville Drive. And then we have I-435 Logistics Center, which is the Marvin Windows development. And then the UG is doing a big development for their CSI buildings at 50th and Armstrong. So all of them, like I said, are underway. The design's completed, or they're going to start construction here soon. Just to kind of give you a few photographs of some of the main installs that we have. I've got a couple slides here. This is a typical installation for a PVC water main with some sand bedding. And then we have, this project was on Riverview Avenue, west of 110th Street. You can see that this is a ductile iron water main that's polyrat with polyethylene sheeting. And we do that to mitigate corrosion on the ductile iron pipe, so it has a longer lasting life. This is another one that we're currently doing right now. It's on 98th Street. Again, this is ductile iron pipe, and you can see the poly wrap around the main. Now, I want to talk, I pulled this one out specifically because I think it's really important to give you a little background information on these river crossings. BPU has 3 river crossings that go across the Kansas River, and all 3 of them are critical to our operations, not only to south of the river, but also to north of the river, because they supply water to the reservoir, the Argentine reservoir, and then in turn, that reservoir supplies it back to the inner city. It's just part of the ongoing hydraulics of the water system. So we're going to be replacing 2 of these crossings. And so I want to give you a little bit of background on those projects. The 18th Street Bridge, currently KDOT is looking at bidding the replacement of that in the fall of this year. So we are under design right now with HNTB. HNTB is doing the bridge design, so it was just kind of a natural concept to have them do the water main design, because they have to incorporate that in the design of the steel structure on how the water main is going to be supported on the bridge. So we're looking at that. They're going to bid it in the fall, and then they're anticipating the demolition, I believe, to start in January, February of next year. The cost of that, by the way, is going to be $4 million on the 18th Street Bridge. That's the estimated cost right now. So we won't be able to cash fund that. So expect us to come back in like the October or November timeframe, presenting to you a loan from KDHE. We have already sent an application in for that. So then they process that and put us on the intended use. And then if we make the selection on the intended use plan, then they'll say, do you want to go ahead and fund this? And we'll come back in October, November timeframe to ask you about that.
Hey, Chris, so the 4 million is BPU's cost,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
What's the total project?
You mean the bridge itself?
Yeah.
I
Anyone?
really don't know.
So the remainder would be, you said KDOT is,
Yeah, it's a KDOT project. So, you know, the bridge replacement itself is strictly, I don't know if how they're funding that, but I mean, it's millions of dollars. I know that.
Sure.
This cost of the water main is not much compared to the total cost of demoing and replacing that bridge.
okay,
They're going from Argentine all the way to Metropolitan.
right. Thank
We
you.
were, when we visited the water plant, we learned of a exposed water main. Is that the one that will be replaced?
You led me right into the next one.
Okay, thank you so much.
But the 18th Street Bridge, remember that will be replaced along with the new bridge. And then here's the second one. We talked about this, and some of you are familiar with this because we've talked about it back in 2021. This is the 12th Street River crossing, okay? That crossing went underneath the river, was installed in about 1940. And, you know, over the last 80 years, the river channel has degraded approximately 15 feet and it exposed the water main. So here's an update of that project. The design and specs are completed by Burns and McDonald. We had an established bid date for tomorrow, actually, but we had some fairly critical questions from contractors that we felt like we needed to address prior to opening bids on that. So we extended the bid date a couple weeks. But we do anticipate construction to begin in July of this year and should be wrapping up in February. The main portion of the work will be done probably before the end of this year, but then we'll have some final cleanup and things that they're going to have to do in a couple months in 2025. The estimated construction and engineering cost for this project is $6 million, and it is being funded by KDHE loan. Just the background information, the channel degradation. We did stabilize the main back in 2021. We hired a contractor, an underwater diver. They went in and, supported the main with grout mattresses that were grouted to go across the main and underneath it. Each year, we actually enter into agreement. They come out and do an underwater inspection for us every year to see that it's still stabilized. Because that's still a critical crossing for us. Even though we know we're going to replace it, we have to maintain that. The design, we did during the October of that year, we also did an alignment study just looking at both the 18th Street Bridge and the 12th Street Bridge at that time, just to kind of figure out what's the most economical method of, putting it on the bridge or going underneath the river. And so we completed that. And of course, the design has been ongoing since then. We're just now finishing up and bidding it. It will be a 30-inch high-density polyethylene pipe that's directionally drilled under the river. So this is going to be a neat process. So if you're interested in construction, you might want to take the opportunity to get a hold of Bill or Steve and see what's happening, and you might want to go out and look at it because it will be interesting, and you don't see this too often. This is kind of a aerial showing the red line where the 30-inch pipe will be under the river, and then the blue line to the is the existing 24-inch main and kind of how it went across the river. So with that kind of summarizes some of the information I wanted to present to you. And now we're going to have Brandon come up and talk. And you guys have heard Brandon and Philip talk many times. And, I just want to point out that these guys are excellent engineers, and we're really very fortunate to have them on our staff. They do a great job, and, they really do a fantastic job for our engineering department.
Just question and comment. Want to go back before COVID when we were kind of entangled in a lot of conversations around Leavenworth Road. If you can go back to that time period, and there was a huge road improvement project that had, I think, 3 phases. And along Leavenworth Road, BPU had to spend a lot of dollars on electric and water system improvements. And at that time, we had what I believe came to an understanding with the unified government on all road projects that were where they were getting reimbursed from KDOT to help cover some of their costs, that they would also include some of BPU's costs to go into that same application, so we can recover some of our costs too. Now, KDOT wasn't paying for it, and if unified government was having to pay for all of these road improvement projects themselves without any financial assistance, so that was one thing. But if they're getting their costs covered, then the conversation was to allow BPU to be part of that application. Years ago, they would trying to make a case that these are electric and water systems, and KDOT would not accept our infrastructure as part of those applications. So I start questioning that, because we're not a private utility, and I can understand that, but our assets are unified government assets, just like the streets, curbs, sidewalks, and roads. So why couldn't they be included? So they made a verbal commitment at that time, that they would also include our costs into those applications. So I'm hoping that we don't lose sight on that.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that every time we do a project like this or with KDOT, we ask them whether or not they will, assist in putting the water line replacement in theirs. And most of the time they basically say the same thing, is that, well, it's not eligible.
Right.
So,
But we have to remain consistent because these are public assets, just like the streets and curbs and sidewalks.
yeah, absolutely. I don't disagree with anything you're saying, and we are telling them that we need to do this. We're not gaining much traction. You know, you ask about the 18th Street Bridge project and whether or not they would replace it. Well, you know, it's a KDOT project and we haven't crossed that bridge yet. As far as who's gonna, you know, I know that they think that we're replacing it. But at some point in the process of doing this project, that will come up. It hasn't come up yet as far as who's paying for what, but we've talked to KDOT a little bit early on in the project and saying, hey, you know, we had an agreement one time with a water line that crossed the bridge and you guys paid for that. That was back a long time ago, I think, but we found the old agreement. So we will approach them at some point in time and say, is there any funding from KDOT to replace this water main because you're replacing your bridge? I mean, that will be asked and we will show them the agreement. We've gave them a copy of the agreement, but we haven't had any real discussion about it. As far as it went was KDOT saying, we will get with BPU and we're going to send you an agreement. And we haven't seen that. We've kind of asked for it a little bit about, okay, where's the agreement? But we haven't pushed them because right now they're funding all of the design work that's happening both on the water line and, you know, the bridge. Now they've given us information about the estimated cost for design. They've given us a breakdown of the estimated cost for the water line, but we still haven't crossed the road where it's like, what are we going to do about this existing agreement that we've had? So probably need some help with Angela on that one.
Well, I
Time
can
frame.
also raise the concern, you know, this was staff talking. I wasn't general manager at that time. I can certainly raise the concern with the county administrator and see if there's some way we can strike a written agreement that at least these will be considered.
Yeah.
In turn, you know, whenever the unified government has future road projects, when they are getting state and federal assistance to help offset some of their costs.
Yeah. Appreciate that. Okay, Brandon, you're up.
Thank you.
All right, good evening, everyone. Like Chris said, my name is Brandon Sisk. I'm a project engineer in the water engineering department. So I'm gonna present to you on a couple of the projects that I've been working on, well, the Argentine Reservoir project's going on 2 years if you include the design work. So the design and spec for the Argentine Reservoir was completed by Black & Veatch. We're currently under construction with an estimated completion date of November of 2024. The estimated construction and engineering cost for this is $15.8 million, and this is a KDHE loan project. The reservoir itself is a 7 million gallon ground storage reservoir. One thing I like to say when I kind of talk about my projects with my wife and kids is if you think about 7 million gallons, think about 7 million milk jugs. That's how much water is going to be in this reservoir. So here's an aerial snapshot of the project area. So on the west side there, you have South 14th Street. On the east, South Valley Street. Douglas Avenue is to the south, and then Lawrence Avenue is around the north side. The existing smaller structure there is the 4 million gallon reservoir. That's been in service since 1993. The larger structure there is the previous existing 12 million gallon ground storage reservoir that was in operation from the early 1900s until 2010 is when that was taken out of service. Also to the south there, the smaller, well, I can't really, the smaller building there is the Argentine pump station. There's also at this pump station, there is a existing emergency, I believe it's a 1 megawatt emergency generator that if we ever lost power in the Argentine pump station area, we would still be able to run that station in case of an emergency loss of power. I'm gonna go through a couple of pictures, as we've progressed through construction. So this picture here, was when the walls had been erected. We hadn't quite shotcrete the walls yet. And then the dome had been formed. So you can't really see, but there's plywood formwork that's there on the dome. And then you have all of the structural steel, that makes up that dome. The entire dome pour itself was approximately 820 cubic yards of concrete. It was poured in two separate pours, basically like a bow tie. So they poured one quarter across from each other and then the next two quarters across from each other when they completed that. We ended up each concrete truck hauled in approximately 10 cubic yards of concrete. So there was 82 trucks that were brought in. So it was a pretty long day. This wasn't the longest pour we had. When the floor slab was poured on this, that was 975 cubic yards of concrete. And for that pour, we got started about 3 a.m. We met with, we had a neighborhood meeting for that, met with planning and zoning, and kind of made sure that we could keep noise to a minimum and make sure that we took into consideration the customers that surround that area during this construction. This picture here shows after the dome had been poured and the shotcrete had been applied to the walls. The paint that you see there is a Pueblo brown is the color that we went with for the body of the reservoir. And then the dome ring and the dome itself is just a bright white. The reason why it's got two separate color tones there is that once the tank is passes the what we call a tightness test when it's filled to make sure there's no leaks, that all the gray area will all be backfilled with dirt, so you won't see that area anymore. It'll be backfilled up to where that paint stops. This camera view is from the existing valve house there at the Argentine pump station. Here's a view from inside the reservoir. So this is just one half of the reservoir. So you have the existing or the concrete baffle wall that goes down the middle. So if you kind of think just this side is just mirrored, it's the exact same on the opposite side there. So you can see the that bright white section there in the back there. That was one of the openings that had to be closed towards the end of the project. That was how the workers got in and out of the reservoir while they were doing work on the inside. When that dome was poured, there was I can't even tell you how much scaffolding was in there to hold up everything. All of that had to be taken out after it was poured. So that was all broken down and taken out of those little openings in the hatch up top. Before we go to the next project, is there any questions on the Argentine Reservoir project?
I know there was a problem with the concrete. Was that when they were pouring the floor or?
So we had multiple different issues. So this has been a pretty good learning experience through this project. So when the floor was being poured, there was a national fly ash shortage. And so during that time, it made it difficult for the suppliers to get the concrete and meet the mix designs that Black & Veatch required. We did end up making it through that hurdle. We ended up going through another issue with the cement type. So the cement type 1-2 changed to type 1L. So there was some questions on that when we did the dome pour, and then we made it over that hurdle. And so that's kind of why the project's gone on a little bit longer. It's just there's been some things that were kind of out of our control with the concrete industry throughout the nation.
Glad that's all solved. and done.
Yes,
That part is done.
yeah, we're through that. We're through those two concrete issues. So the next project that I'm working on is at the Nearman Water Treatment Plant. We're in the process of procuring the equipment for installing two emergency generators and a paralleling switchgear. The design and spec again on this was completed by Black & Veatch. We actually just recently awarded the equipment contract. We're going to be going through 3E Kohler for the it's two 2.5 megawatt emergency generators and paralleling switchgear. Those will both be supplied by 3E Kohler. These are very long lead items. So the delivery of the generator is approximately 98 weeks, and the switchgear itself is approximately 72 weeks. So with those two long lead times, we're looking at starting construction in May of 2026. The construction process, or I'm sorry, we'll start construction in March of 2026, but the equipment would all be here in May of 26. This is
Excuse me, did you say it takes that long to get the equipment?
yes, to get the equipment we're looking at 98 weeks for the generators.
Wow, thank you.
So the estimated construction engineering cost on this is $7.4 million. This is one of the projects that Chris referenced earlier. That's a FEMA grant project. So the entire cost of the generators will be funded by that FEMA grant. They'll fund about half of that total project cost, so about $3.7 million. One thing that comes with the FEMA grant is there is a deadline on getting the project completed. So from the time the grant was awarded to the time the project is completed, you have a 3-year time period to get that completed. We do have the ability to apply for waivers if something's out of our control that we can't get done in the 3 years, but based off of the current project schedule, we should be able to meet that deadline. So here's a kind of another aerial overview of this project area. So the two larger rectangles there represent the two emergency generators. The smaller rectangle in front of those is the new paralleling switchgear. As you look to the north, you'll see the existing switchgear for the treatment plant. There is two power feeds that come in to the Nearman Water Treatment Plant. So the Sunset feed comes in on the west side. The Nearman feed comes in on the east side. By installing this new paralleling switchgear, we'll be able to utilize our existing infrastructure to also not only power the treatment plant in case of a loss of power, we can also power our horizontal collector wells that are down by the river north of the power plant. So we can utilize that existing the Nearman infrastructure we'll have to do some switching with electric operations, but we are able to power those through these same generators that'll be located at the treatment plant. So the little bit of background, the Nearman treatment plant's a 72 million gallon per day capacity. We had, well, I got already, sorry. And then one other thing to kind of about these generators is, as you have seen just the past weekend, we are getting an increase in some of these larger storm events. So this will give us the redundancy that we need on any loss of power. This is the last, so we do have an existing generator at our Milan pump station and at our Argentine pump station. And so with having these generators, if we did have a large loss of power, this will give us the infrastructure we need to be able to still supply water throughout the county. Any additional questions?
Thank you. I appreciate you explaining the why. That was very important to me. Thank you so much.
We'll turn it over to Philip.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Hey, thank you, everyone. I can't stress enough just how important that is to have those 3 generators. I'm really thankful that we do have a reliable electric system, but I'm also thankful that we're putting things in place that if the unfortunate event happens, we're ready to supply that water. I am going to talk to you about our other grant. This is the EPA grant. The EPA grant was something that we had when Senator Moran came here not too long ago. It's a huge deal. I've only been here around BPU for almost 20 years, and this is my first EPA grant that I personally seen. But here we're doing our design internally. We're going to do our bid date. It's coming up here. So you're going to see a lot of construction, especially in 2 particular areas. And I'm going to highlight these areas later. There's going to be a lot of construction in District 3. So that's Brett. Sorry, I hope that's okay if I call you Brett. Is that okay if I call you Brett? Brett, is he there? No,
yeah, that's fine. Thanks.
Hey, thank you, Brett. I really appreciate that. And of course, we also going to do a lot of construction in District 1 with Steve. He told me I could call him that. All right, so Our construction, we're gonna start here this summer, and we're gonna try to do a lot of community outreach, okay? This particular construction method we're gonna talk about is horizontal directional drilling. It's a trenchless method. However, with that, there is still some impact to the customers. We want to make sure you guys are aware that when we're going through these neighborhoods, there will be some impact. We're estimating $10 million. So where is this happening? Primarily east of 635. We split up these areas into 18 areas. We have a team of engineers who are working through this, and we have to triage it. Okay, so we focus on the water mains based on a number of different criteria. Okay, so we looked at a lot of different things, but one of the big things we looked at was how often were these water mains breaking? That's a concentrated on mains with leaks per mile per year of 2. Just a general reminder, as I did with the benchmarking information, the AWWA goal is 0.3. These are at 2. The lower the number, the better. So we are stopping the hemorrhaging, but still, we still have a lot of work to do. I wish I could say that $10 million goes really far, but it doesn't go as far as I would like. So this first area here, this is kind of north of the river, east of 635. This is what we did back in 2014. These highlighted areas we went through and we replaced. We spent $10 million then. We replaced almost 15 miles of pipe. A huge impact, right? We saw the number of leaks we had per year decrease. It was amazing. It was great, but we knew we had more work to do. Like I said, we went south in 2 additional areas, but we ran out of money, and that was before COVID. You guys know what happened when COVID happened, price increases came. Still, we was thankful for this EPA grant because we're coming back to this area this summer. So we're really going to be focusing on a couple places. So we're going to kind of zoom into here. This is area R, that's what we call it. We use alphabets just to name these areas because there's so many of them. This is over here by KU Hospital. So we are south of I-35, all the way to the east line, the state line, and then south to county line. Those colors is kind of hard to see. The blue lines are just our existing water mains. The kind of orange color, the other color, those are the ones we are planning to replace. As you can see, we're going to impact a lot of customers. All right, over 1,500 people will be impacted by this. They will have better water supply, more consistent water pressure due to removing older pipes that have a lot of tuberculation built up. They will have better reliability because we're getting rid of those water mains that had a history of high number of breaks. Visiting a street more than 2 times a year because that water main is breaking is not normal. We don't want to see that. This is area Q. I can't quite see that. There it is. So the west side is 44th Street. We're going north to Gibbs, all the way east to 18th Street. And of course, that's down there by County Line Road. So you can see these are some more water mains we're going to be replacing. And I'm really hoping those customers who are in District 3 are patient with us as we go through this, but it is a huge benefit to do this project.
Hey, Philip?
Yes.
And if this is later in your presentation, just tell me, but what are we doing in the way of customer communication on both of these?
So we're going to do a couple of different things. For the first time, one of the big things we're planning to do, and we're going to test this out with Brandon, who was just up here, because his area is going to be one of the first ones we're doing. We're planning to reach out to the neighborhood resource groups. We're hoping to get some in-person time, or at least on Zoom or Teams, to at least communicate what's happening. We always send out letters, especially on the particular streets. Hey, everyone, we're coming through your neighborhood. This is what's going to happen. We kind of lay out what construction is going. During construction, our staff on site, they do a really great job of just being approachable and just talking with the customers, because we do notice the impact, even when we're digging and sometimes getting access to their house. But those are our main goals on that communication front.
And not necessarily in place of letters, and I understand there's a cost associated with this, but other construction projects that go on, what the companies will do, they'll do a door tag.
Okay.
Right? I mean, just something to consider. I don't read every piece of junk mail that comes from, whether it's from BPU or otherwise in my mail, but I will pay attention if somebody puts something on my door.
I would definitely pass that on. Yes.
Well, I feel like it's passed on at this point. Thank you.
Some of the other areas we're doing is area P. And then after we finish this area on south of the river, we're going to come back north of the river. So this is in the northeast section. We call them A, B, D, and F. But there are a lot of areas here that we're planning to also focus on. Oh, sorry. Before I jump to the parallel pump station, are there any questions about this particular part? Yes, ma'am.
So is this area where you didn't, it's in the same area that so these are ones you didn't get to before?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
So when we first came through, back in 2014, we tried to focus on places that we knew would help the people the most, like a lot more. Not saying that there aren't individuals who live here, but as we were looking and prioritizing streets, we did look at the population. And so now we're coming back here. We knew we needed to do these water mains, but sometimes they're not as densely populated. All right. Oh,
Let me ask, is there a correlative with, with the areas you identify with the breaks? You said that ideally we'd be at 2, but with that which the consumer is responsible for. I mean, in other words, if there's a density of breaks and these are higher density of breaks, then where it runs to the, I hear about the consumer's responsibility for, when it comes into the line.
Right.
Is there a correlative there? I'd imagine so that.
Yeah,
part
the
is-
strongest correlation is age in this particular case. These are predominantly our oldest parts of our city. So we know some of these water mains from the 1800s, some of the houses are just as old. So if you had a house built in 1920, had a galvanized water service, and you're fed from a galvanized water line that has a history of breaks, that material itself is just at its end of its useful life. And because of that, yes, you probably will see that. A newer subdivision, we use different materials. They're not gonna have the same type of failures. Does that answer your
It
question?
does.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do about that, but yeah, it answers it. I mean.
We get a lot of calls like that in our office. One of the things I do highly recommend to a lot of those customers is the home serve insurance. I'm like, hey, your area, you need it. It will pay for itself, no time. That is a no-brainer. Just do it. And that's what I really recommend to people. Knowing what your water service is made out of plays a lot into that, but that's what I recommend.
But oftentimes those are the areas that can least afford the insurance until it hits them with that which we know would be coming.
And that's actually one of the reasons why we was able to get this EPA grant. All right, so EJ 40 is one of the reasons, the environmental justice. And one of those things were, hey, help people like this in this area. We need these people. We need everyone here. We're all here together. We're all united. And so we all need to work together. And if we help our least fortunate, it helps everyone as a community.
Thank you.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
All right, I'm gonna go a little bit faster. I feel like I've been talking for a long time, but I do appreciate your patience. So the parallel pump station, this is, our parallel pump station was built in the late 50s, early 60s. It was, and right now we hired Burns and McDonnell. They're gonna finish out, they just finished the bid. Delivery is gonna be April 25th or April 2025. Long lead items. We spend a lot of money and then we have to wait. Construction, and then of course, like as Chris was explaining, this is a KDHE loan, $2 million. This is a picture of our parallel pump stations located at 55th and Parallel. And then, as I was saying, some of this equipment is original essentially. As you look on that picture, these are the original switch gears. Mr. Johnson probably spent more time in that than I did. I mean,
So when you get finished, I probably won't remember,
it won't
recognize all the equipment you're putting in there.
exactly. But it is needed. It is definitely needed for a lot of our reliability. Some components are just, you can't get them, they're obsolete. So I did want to talk about a couple more general maintenance projects. I think it was a year or so ago, I was up here and I was talking about our painting. We had just finished painting the 40th in Oakland. Mary came and asked me, Philip, when are you going to paint I-435? Well, Mary, I'm finally here and I can say it is going to happen this year. Thank you for being patient. We're going to make it look nice. All those people are driving by, think about all the amazing things they could build out at the Legends. So we're going to have a pretty tank. Our master plan is almost done. And then of course, we're also working on our transmission main. The reason I'm bringing up our transmission mains is while they're extremely critical, anytime we have an issue with these, it is very expensive. It's kind of hard to tell here, but this particular pipeline is a 48-inch pipeline, pre-stressed concrete pipe. That blue going across the street, that's actually a 24-inch pipeline. So it's fairly large. And it's going to be over $100,000 just for this one repair. The material alone has a long lead item. We don't even keep a lot of it in stock. So when we find out these problems and we're going to do these repairs, it costs a lot of money. some of these water mains, when we built our water treatment plant, early 2000s, we built some additional transmission mains. But just like how we work on the 18th Street or 12th Street, some of our older transmission mains are also starting to experience the end of their life. It's just our operation maintenance, and what we do is very capital intensive. I took up enough of your time. I do appreciate all of you, and thank you for everything you guys are doing.
Any questions?
All right.
Yeah, I do want to go back on something Chris said. I think this is important to make note of too. So when Don Gray was here and Water One decided to run water mains across the western part of our community, they did ask for Don's support, and Don had asked them to allow us to tap into their mains in case we face a situation to where we could not meet our everyday demand and needed water from sources outside of our Nearman water treatment plant. And so we did have an agreement with them, and more recently, Steve and his staff undertook the task in working with Water One to go back and test all the equipment again and to verify that it's working. So some of the equipment had to be replaced, and it is working in the way it needs to today, from what I understand.
Yes, so the one thing that it had never been tested, we had the interconnect there, we had to turn it on, we could, but the risk was their pressure was a lot more than ours.
Right.
So I didn't think it was worth we didn't think it was worth the risk to do the test without making the upgrades. So we made those upgrades to be able to reduce the pressure coming from them, that get it to our level of pressure and feed our system. So we did a test, and it lasted probably about 4.5 hours. And we took different levels of flow to see what we could take, and it was very successful. Emergency interconnects are not made for permanent stuff. It's something to try to get you by for a day or two.
Right.
That's what we have 2 interconnects with Water One. One is over off 18th Street that feeds the Argentine area. And then this one that's out west that will feed the other area. And then it'll come back to the Milan pump station, and then we'll put it throughout the rest of the system for the direct. So hope we never get to that, but they're there.
Yeah, and for me, it's important to have that layer of redundancy in case something does happen to the plant itself. I mean, if we've got lots of redundancy with the generator going in, if we have electric problems, but if something happens internal, and that becomes a whole different issue, this will serve this community well. So it was, and me being kind of an electric guy, knowing how we build redundancies all across town, I thought it was important for us to go back and address this.
So that one of Phil's project is a project we just did for that transmission main he talked at the very end.
Right.
This was about redundancy for the power plant.
Right.
So the power plant, when they made the decision that not to use the river and to use their cooling tower, well, we have a feed to it. Well, that transmission main, we've had several leaks, about 5 leaks over the last 10 years. And when we take a transmission main down, it's not something that we can fix like we do distributions mains, where maybe 4 to 8 hours and we have water back on. Transmission mains are usually down for a week, 2 weeks. So we didn't want to take down the power plant and have to shut the power plant down because we took their water supply out. So that blue line, that went to the cooling tower. That's what he showed. That goes to the cooling tower. So we've double valved that. So if we have a leak, we can feed it from the west, which is the plant, or we can feed it from the east, which is coming from our other locations, from the plant coming back around.
Right.
So we're going to keep the power plant. So that's redundancy. That's what water and electric, that's what we try to do.
Right. And that is good cooperation between the 2 utilities and supporting one another. So,
Yes. Yeah.
but in addition to that, I did renew and update an agreement with Water One so that we would have that service. Unfortunately, I would say I wouldn't want to have to exercise that in any way, but it's also comforting knowing that we do have the agreement in place.
That's right. We have that as that backup for us if we need it. Like I said, generators, the next big
Right.
thing we're gonna
Yep.
get.
Yep.
So at the end of 26, that's another big hurdle risk that we take away the water department. with.
Right. Yep, I agree.
So.
Thank you. Moving on to miscellaneous comments I've got, I think it was last meeting, the board asked for an update on United Way monies that we're sending there. I have reached out and started a conversation about updating a previous, presentation. But I've also asked them to provide some additional information that was not included in that. Because I think it's important for the board and our community to understand United Way's full role in supporting Wyandotte County. And it's not just the money that BPU is contributing to utility assistance, but United Way gets other funding from other agencies to help Wyandotte County. And I do want to make sure that we at least cover that part too. And there is a percentage of funds that come from outside of Wyandotte County into helping Wyandotte County. So I do want to give you the full breadth of understanding how that support is, but also focus on the money that BPU is contributing and then how that's being recycled back into our community to help those that are needing utility assistance. So I think we've got a meeting next week with Todd, and I'll try to get him here at the next board meeting. I've asked him to work towards that, so hopefully we can get that accomplished.
That was the hardship and utility
Right.
funds that I
Yeah.
think Rose asked about
Right.
last time, the update
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah, but I want him
Okay.
to talk, include that, but also talk about just the various support and all the, the support that they do for Wyandotte County, just to get a better grasp and understanding. Because if you remember, Wyandotte County United Way merged with the Greater Kansas City, and part of us that were board members on United Way for Wyandotte County are now board members for Greater Kansas City. And that whole conversation prior to the merger included a lot of conversations about, okay, if we're moving away from Wyandotte County, the support from Wyandotte County cannot stop. Okay, and then they made some commitments to maintain that Wyandotte County support. And as far as I can tell, being a board member, that support is still coming back to Wyandotte County.
And Mr. President, Pro Tem,
Yeah, yes, please. Yes.
sorry, Tom. May I ask a question on this topic?
Please.
And Bill, I actually owe you an email on this because I wanted to be really specific and I appreciate, the additional monies that the United Way puts back into Wyandotte County. But as you know, this board has allocated sizable amounts
Right.
over the past 2 budget cycles to the United Way to put back into our customers for utility assistance. And so while I'm appreciative of everything else they're helping with Wyandotte County residents, I think this board is very interested in making sure that they are being good stewards of those dollars.
Yes, and I led off with that conversation with them.
I'll send you an email.
Okay, all right.
Thank
And
you.
to that point, oh, no, go ahead.
I'm finished.
Okay, that's Steve.
I had a question. So in that report, will they be able to break down how much of the funds that they are contributing go to actual Wyandotte County residents? Will they be able to provide that?
Well, so
Point.
they distribute money back to the various agencies in Wyandotte County. So I've asked for a account for how much money is being sent to each agency. Okay, and if you remember, Rose, was it last year, I think, or 2 years ago, we met with all the agencies together, had a conversation with how is that working? And then the biggest thing is to make sure not just that we were having a conversation, but we could spur some type of conversation between the agencies. Because what we were hearing was customers go to one agency and they got a little bit different experience than going to an agency somewhere else. So it was a good opportunity for them to speak get in the room, all of them speak together, but also have us to try to communicate our message out as to here's what we would like to make sure is going on. once they receive money back from United Way.
No, my question was, when they provide the report, will they be able to let us know how much of the money that that county residents receive for utility assistance?
Yes, yes.
Okay, that's
yes,
what, that
yes,
was my.
that was, and that's the utility assistance and hardship that goes back to the agencies
Very good.
directly to distribute back to our Wyandotte County population.
Thank you.
So,
And to that point, a line item that we gave
Yeah.
at one point was, I think, 250,000. Was that to United Way or was that?
well,
online?
it's above 200,000 when you look at what all of our employees contribute to United Way. And then when you look at what BPU contributes to United Way for the hardship and or hardship and utility assistance. So both of those are around 100,000 so or piece hardship. And I don't have the exact number, but the
Yeah,
hardship.
but we had a line item of.
Well, I know.
So it's,
Additional
That
400,000.
additional, that 250.
well, so year one, it was 225 or 250,000 that was allocated from the board's economic development fund. And then last year it was 440,000
Okay.
that was allocated. I mean,
that
there's a lot of
250.
money that's out there.
Yes,
And
yes,
so that's, I think, what we're trying to get a handle on. And I understand the 440, they're not gonna be able to report on because it should be ongoing. But like, if we're out of that money right now, we need to know.
right.
Or how
So-
much of it is coming back directly for the accountability is kind of my concern.
yes.
Well,
That
number
total
one,
number.
except for the fee that United Way takes, 100% of that money should be coming back to our customer base.
Yes, I
Right.
agree. I agree. And that's what I've asked them to speak on. So if you remember, and Rose can correct me, because I don't have the exact accounting in front of me, but so that money, that decision was made in December of last year. And then I think 40,000 was to be allocated at the end, within December, and the 400,000 was going to be allocated for
That's right.
this year, okay?
That's right.
So I'll ask him to provide information on the 40,000, where it went, and the ongoing money for 2024, which is 400,000 in addition to what we were already providing them.
Thank you.
So also, we went live on Monday with a new meter data management system. And with that, we opened up and presented a new customer portal for our community. So part of that new portal called My Meter replaced Energy Engage product that was already out there. Some of the information that I have on how things are working was we had about 30,000 users on Energy Engage at the time we made the switch. And currently we have just over 2,300 customers that have already switched over. And there was emails, there was other communication, and I got an email. I'm not sure who all here got emails on. There's a new product coming. You're going to have to go and re-register and sign into the new portal, My Meter, because the old meter, the old Energy Engage, there's not any way to switch people over without them re-registering themselves. So there's about 50 or so in counting how many people are converting. There's about 50 or so an hour that we're tracking that are now going in and registering. I would imagine that number will change throughout the day, throughout the week, but we do see progress being made with people moving to the new portal, and hopefully their experience would be much better than what they had with Energy Engage. I haven't personally registered myself. I'm planning on doing it. I'm still a little bit behind the 8 ball, being late, so I'm hoping that you have. But I've also seen the portal through some of the meetings and other conversations that we've had internally. So I'm hoping it's just a very much better experience for the community, and they'll appreciate not only the ease of use, but the information that we're providing to them that they can access themselves.
Bill, I have actually, I've converted over to the My Meter. So
Good.
I tried to do it first thing Monday morning and I couldn't figure it out, but I figured it out later in the day. So it's done.
Okay, my question, since, I'll be using it, would you not be able to, pay your bills online, unless you convert?
No, you can still, we don't have any.
Energy
customer
Engage
service
can
pe-
still?
We don't have any customer service people. Yeah, Gabby's here. Gabby, can you come up?
Rob knows.
You're sitting so far back, I couldn't see you. Sorry.
Knows all.
So instead of me answering that, I think I know the answer, but I want to make sure I talk.
Yes, so they can still log in and, or not log in, they can still make one-time payments. They don't have to register an account to make a payment. They can still do it over the phone or online.
Oh, great. Thank you.
So when they log in to get to the payment section, that's really not my meter, right?
Correct. So if you go to the BPU website and click on pay bill, that'll direct you to the My Meter, and then above that, it has the option to make a payment online.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
Billing date's coming up soon.
I understand that there might be an update, on our favorite topic, on the bill bifurcation meetings with the UG.
Yeah, well, interesting, yes. I was asked to come over to a meeting yesterday to meet with the UG team on this specific topic, and I didn't have too many resources here that was already a part of the project, so I did take two of our project managers over. We've got people out of town, we got people that had other things where they couldn't make it. So it was a very open, very vigorous discussion on where we are, why we quit meeting, and then how do we find a path going forward. So the county administrator did ask the UG staff to start meeting with us again. They provided some additional information over costs for what the UG will have to incur. We're taking a look at those numbers. I don't want to render any opinion right now until I'm comfortable with where BPU is and analyzing that information. And I don't know how the meetings would go once we get back together and what a successful outcome will be. So I would say this, we have done a lot I've done a lot personally. I've invested a lot of time in this. Staff has invested a lot of time, so my hat goes out, and thanks goes out to the people on the BPU team for really preparing for these type conversations and working through some pretty tough conversations, and hanging in there with me, and then hanging in there with on behalf of the board, and trying to get this accomplished, because this year we are working to try to satisfy what the board wants to see done too. And I won't just rest that there. I have communicated that I certainly want to see it personally myself. Okay. So I'm all in favor of this. But I think we're getting to the point, and I really thought this for some time, but I think we're at the point to where we really need to have our elected officials more involved at this point. Okay. Because I don't know, quite frankly, that I can get everything done to my satisfaction or to your satisfaction, working any farther without our elected officials. So my request is to you as board members is help us determine how we can work together and solve this problem, because I'm now borrowing a term I heard a few board meetings ago on, we should approach this as problem solvers, and not getting to any arguments or real create any disputes with the unified government. And I've tried not to, but these are tough conversations. I mean, and it's tough for me to sit down and have a conversation about, here's where I see where we need to go. And I'm trying to set aside personal feelings, but at the same time, I'm trying to be realistic. What I hear from the public ourselves who's come here, what I know where some of our staff is and what I've heard the board ask me to try to accomplish, so.
Yeah,
Well,
and
let me, oh, I'm
No,
sorry.
go-
Oh, no,
no,
no, no. you
no,
have the
no, go
floor.
ahead.
You have the floor. You have the floor.
no, sir,
Please,
go ahead.
please.
Well, thank you, Bill, for that, and, I guess thank you um, for the invitation back to, your elected board to, perhaps get back involved. I will say that, I had multiple calls this morning, which is why I knew there must be an update that had to be, that was able to be given tonight. And I did talk with Commissioner Bynum earlier today, and we talked about this topic, and I said, do you remember last July when we all met as joint body? And you so graciously offered us to continue what was the pilot reduction task force at that time to perhaps continue work on this very issue, and maybe some related issues. And she said she remembered, and so she was going to offer, and I told her, I said, if the task force, fires up again, and I hope that it does, let's give an opportunity to, two of the task force members from the unified government side were Commissioner Bynum and Dr. Hill, and now Commissioner Hill at the time. And certainly I was a part of it for BPU, and I would ask, another board member, to participate in that. We do sign up for this. We do sign up to solve problems, and, I sincerely appreciate everything that our staff has done to try to move this forward. I know that we have given you this task, and I know that this task is daunting. And, it's hard change is hard. We all know that. And, perhaps we have given, the staff a task that cannot be accomplished by the staff, and that's okay. Inevitably, we're going to need implementation from the staff of both sides, but I think it's time that, perhaps some of us, who choose to do this and have signed up for this, to go back and roll up our sleeves and see if we can find some viable alternatives that might be, mutually received by both sides. So,
I'm so glad I yielded back because you, Rose Mulvaney Henry, have articulated far better than I'm going to be able to in my halting tongue to try and emphasize this idea that we've had of separating out the UG charges that are listed on the bill that we, the utility, are having to collect on behalf of the UG that include but are not limited to the pilot, et cetera, et cetera. I, want to recapitulate that we have had this discussion for a long time and it has gotten nowhere, and that we, the BPU, catch the bad vibe of the public in part, not because of the onerous rates that we charge, which in and of themselves, some would say are excessive for the utilization of our electric and water service. We catch it because of being the bill collector for the UG. So at the end of the day, and I'm so pleased because this was something that when I came on the board, I was asking we consider doing. There have been so many subsequent discussions. Anyone that I've been involved with who's run for UG commission that, I lend support to knows about this. And I highly suggest from the mayor to the Mayor Garner and others that they have given the political will to see this happen. I don't know what's happening. I don't know why, through the bureaucracies of our mutual municipal operations that has gotten to this point that there's a breakdown. This is what I'm asking, and please, if we can, please, Mr. Johnson, Bill, if we can put together a format that is feasible for how this can be accomplished. Everything from the separation to the double billing, even to the collection. We see the UG having put us on the hook again for this new stormwater management bill that we're having to collect for, but without having any implementation in place for if it's not collected, what will happen. my hope, my suggestion is for us, the utility, with all of the person power that you've already put together, is just give us a paper, give us a roadmap, a print up to present to as to how this can be accomplished. If they don't have anything else to come back with, if they want to tweak it, that's perfectly fine. But let us hand them something for the sake of what those of us who are frustrated by this multi-year project. Let us hand them 2 pieces of paper that detail how it can be done in your estimation. And then I'll be in a position to go to the commissioners who've given me their commitment when they were either running for election or reelection, that they would be a part of this happening. Because I'll say, here's the plan. Here it is. It's on your desk. Help us implement it. And if you have a better suggestion, or if you have something else you need to do, with all deliberate speed, let's get to it. Let's do it now. This is May of 2024. We've been talking about this for 2 years, and I hope that we can get this accomplished.
So if you go back and look at the July 23 presentation, I think part of that plan is there. Okay. And what I did was speak to the pilot being twice the national average. I did speak to the fact that the unified government don't pay electric and water services, and BPU provide additional support even beyond that. That if BPU paid to unified government everything that we owe them, and they paid us for everything, then that would be cost reduction for the community. Okay, so when you talk, the one thing you're gonna hear is by separating, this is gonna be increased costs for the unified government, because, and it will be for separating the bill. They would have to take on additional expenses to do this. But that's only one part of the plan. And if they can reduce the pilot, and if they can pay for their electric and water service, then in terms of the benefit to the community, the net difference of that would be a huge windfall for the community, because it'll be additional and less costs that the community would be paying for. So, I mean, the problem is there is the UG's got to have to figure this out through their budget, and it, it's taking in less revenue, but also having larger expenses by them paying BPU at the same time. How they do that, I mean, they're talking their budget process has already begun. And I've asked them again to take a look at all that. It's not easy, but these are the tough conversations and the difficult moments that they're faced with. And then, just looking at prioritizing, looking at all the other things that we go through here. And I'm not saying that they don't, but BPU's had to make some pretty difficult decisions too, in order to rein in costs, and get us in a better position financially, and while still not dropping service and by increasing service to the community. We've had some tough decisions we've had to make along the way as well.
So let me reiterate, would it be possible for us to, and I appreciate that response, to put together, consolidate what you have, or what you think you and staff have given this time, just to put recommendations in front of the UG Commission in terms of how we see how you can project a good implementation of the separation and other ancillary, collections or what have you.
If that's what the board wants, then we can put together that information and provide it back to the
something for them to have in hand, so as they continue their deliberations,
yes.
they can tweak it so that we can get something.
Now, I don't want to go without saying that Tom Groneman has sent a letter over requesting a meeting, so that I don't know if Tom has gotten a response directly back from the mayor's office, but that request has already been made. And but I do know that the mayor did reach out to me and to David and asked us to work this out. And David Johnson did say that and direct his staff to start meeting with us again. I just don't know where we're going to go without having you guys involved. You know, I don't want to waste the rest of the year talking
Yeah.
when it goes nowhere.
I mean, look, again, y'all have given this a valiant effort. You have. And, you know, I don't want to say it has been wasted time because I think you guys have, you know, come up with some really good potential solutions. Jerry, I remember in your presentation you gave not too terribly long ago about sort of the dual billing, you know, using the same system, and some of those things. And I think that, you know, this board has to, I think, put in some work to go rally some support of the commissioners to go find some solutions to this. And I'm not saying let's not go use, you know, some of the things that y'all have put in place, but I guess number one, I'm asking if this task force, you know, becomes viable again, is this board supportive of us maybe moving down that path for a while? And I throw that out to the board.
I'm definitely in support of that.
I am as well.
I guess I would be. I just want to see something done. I mean, again,
Amen.
all this is basically a truth in billing for us. At the end of the day, if if our ratepayers, if our customers owe $1 for everything, both UG charges and their consumption, at the end of the day, when this happens, and there is separation, they're still gonna owe the whole dollar.
No,
It's just gonna
that's
be accountability for, and not having the onus of action, further action, if they don't pay their UG taxes.
no,
Do it.
that's fair. And, you know, and I think it, you know, and David, I know part of this was, you know, before you were on the board and then as you've come on the board, you've seen the transformation of the bill itself, right? And, you know, we had some feedback in the community engagement committee meeting we had a week or so ago. And, you know, I mean, you've got folks there that are members of the community that are telling us this is amazing. This is amazing what y'all have done at BPU. And I know we had some, you know, assistance from the UG at that time as well. But, you know, that's definitely a step in the right direction. And I know that took us a long time to get that one implemented, right?
Yep.
And so, while I know we all want something to happen overnight, I think we're gonna have to, you know, maybe, I don't want to say go back to the drawing board from the beginning, because I think the staffs on both sides have done, you know, we have a framework to at least draw from. But I think we have to get support from the commissioners at this point. I just do.
What's gonna be the consensus of what you all decide to do? For me personally, I think enough time has been spent and we've already gotten a framework or basis that we can start making recommendations and move from there. Starting all over again is not certainly where I would want to go. We've spent, as has been said, ample time, quite a bit already. We do have the July 2023 presentation and other things from which to draw. I would hope that we could present something to our commissioner, the commissioners, to say, where do we go from here? Rather than say, let's all come back to the table again and start all over after the time, because again, it just, I would hope that, but it's not my, if this were my solo decision, I would like to have something in hand soon, like this month, May, that we already can compile to walk over and have a talk with the 10 members of the commission as to would they take the machinations together to see how this would work, that we could get this implemented. But we can start over.
Well, and I guess let me ask you this, because I'm trying to figure out here, you know, based on the information you're asking for, you know, for staff to produce, are you talking, you know, David wants to go over and talk to the commissioners at an open meeting? I mean, Tom, I know you're online. I don't know if you've heard back from the mayor's office yet on our request for a joint meeting. Are you thinking of a joint meeting? Like what? I don't know what you're thinking. I mean, I'm trying to understand.
And certainly I defer to the president if he wants to speak to it, but just in one sentence, I would hope that we could prepare some sort of preliminary recommendations, list of recommendations as to how this, this entire separation and implementation could occur? What do we recommend? What does the utility see? How do we see this happening? In equity, in fairness to what happens with the UG and their charges and what they need, and to, of course, the utility. What, I mean, that we could present to them, we'd have something to talk to them about instead of some nebulous, ill-defined or undefined, concept of, we'd like to see everything separated out. The next question in my mind is, how does that work? And if we can put together at least some recommendations to discuss with them, and that would be my preference, because we've already spent the time and we've had the energy put in to put that together, from what I'm understanding.
Okay.
I might inject right now. I have not heard back from the UG regarding the letter that we sent over requesting a meeting. So we haven't heard back yet. So
If I can,
and I think that the presentation is, as far as David, what you're talking about, the presentation that Jerry made to us as a board several months ago laid out exactly what you're talking about. The steps that that we saw that needed to be taken was taken, and how it could be split out, how they could, all the things that could be done. I think that I believe that information was given to the mayor and maybe to the administrator. If we have an opportunity to sit down with the whole board, the whole commission, that presentation or something along those lines would be something that we would definitely want to present to them as what we feel or how we feel that we could move forward with this thing. But we got to get the meeting set first.
Mr. President, you took the words out of my mouth. I was just going to say, I think the presentation Jerry gave us outlined pretty much what we're talking about here. So I'm supportive of using that as the model.
Well, thank you both.
Yep.
Has that been codified? Do we have that in a written form, the presentation, or was it?
It was a PowerPoint. It's in,
Oh,
So
it's part of minutes of.
before we present that, we did have a last minute request, and we do have some updates to that presentation that we need to include. So you'll have the latest based on splitting databases and allowing the UG to have certain access rights.
And let me go ahead and let the board know if in case some of you have already spoken with, but the mayor requested an update as to where BPU is and asked the president to present that. And because the president will be out and the vice president will be out, I will be making that presentation tomorrow and pretty much just letting them know this is where we are. But I'll be providing many of the slides that were presented in the July 13th meeting, thanks to Bill, who provided an update to those slides. So that's what I'll be presenting. And I'm hearing from commissioners, as you have heard from commissioners, because they have anxiety about what I'm going to say. But it's not much different than what was said in July 13th. So that's pretty much it.
could you share, please, where that will be presented, Mr. Wicks?
At the commission meeting. And so we're asking, not only our elected officials will be there, but we want members of the public to be aware as to where we are, because they're the ones that, are really posing those questions to us. Where we at? Where you guys say we're going to do this? You made these promises. What's going on? And so we're making sure that our public is notified. Those who contacted us regarding this bifurcation, we're making sure that they're notified of the meeting as well tomorrow evening at 7.
Thank you.
And Angela.
Angela.
Yes, I would remind the board that if 4 or more in attendance and this discussion is going on with BPU members, it becomes an open meeting. And so it should have been noticed up. So you might discuss amongst yourself who's going to be there to see if there'll be more.
I will not be in attendance.
I will not be able to be there.
I will not, at the UG commission meeting.
Okay, well, that solves, thank you. And then I think that it should be clarified whether board member Wakes is there speaking as a board member or speaking on behalf of the board, because to speak on the behalf of the board would take a vote. So that should be clarified. And third, I do want to clarify that the pilot cannot come off the BPU board because so I just want to read.
Come off the what?
BP, it cannot come off the BPU bill.
Bill.
Yeah.
Because of,
Because of, it is assessed against the utility and because the utility is a cost of service, the way they assess that, they can't, obviously you cannot take it out of profit. So it is just assessed as in a percentage of the bill. So.
so here, and I really want to understand this because the pilot is a percentage of what?
The pilot is assessed on the revenues of BPU.
Right.
It is, and you're right, the revenues come from the customers, but it is.
Not all of them.
It is not.
Because the pilot includes beyond the revenues that come from people to pay the bills. The revenue of BPU, all of the revenues of BPU.
It's a assessment against all gross revenue from BPU. So whether it comes in through bill payment or through any other charges that generate revenue for BPU, the pilot is assessed against that as well.
Right. So it is assessed against the BPU, not the individual customer. Obviously, it has to be passed along to the customer because it cannot be taken out of profits. So the BPU has chosen to assess it just as, at the end on the bill. Instead of building it into the rate. So it'd have to remain with the BPU.
Okay.
So if our engineering teams are designing projects for customers and customers have to pay BPU for any of those services, those revenues that we collect are subject to pilot as well. So when we talk to a public about providing services, I mean, here's the BPU cost, here's a pilot, here's the taxes and everything also associated with that service.
Thank you. Okay, so you're saying that needs to be voted? The presentation?
Only if you're making it on behalf of the board instead of making it on behalf of yourself. That's that distinction.
Okay, so he asked for an update of where we are. So that would be the board.
So if you're appearing on behalf of the board, then there should be a vote authorizing you to do so.
Okay.
Well, I would entertain, if that be the desire, a motion for Mr. Wakes, Board Member Wakes, to present on behalf of our utility before the UG at tomorrow's meeting.
Okay. I might just say that the mayor reached out to me through his chief of staff and to Mr. Wakes to come before the commission and give an update on the BPU. I'm not going to be able to be there because of the surgery that I had today. They felt that they wanted it to happen at their next at this upcoming commission meeting. So Mr. Wakes has agreed to go ahead and do that. Whether it's personal or board is fine. Either way that we decide to do it is fine with me. But it was at the request of the mayor. The mayor reached out to the two of us, and that's where we're at.
Well, Mr. President, what do you suggest? I mean, I do understand the line that council is drawing. Is this in which capacity it would be, if it's as an individual or as an emissary of our policy of the utilities? But we will move at your discretion, Mr. President, as to which way we direct.
I think it's just up to the board how Mr. Wakes do you feel like this is that you want to do this as a you personally as being invited by the mayor to come and make this update, or do you want to have the weight of the board behind you?
Yeah, I think it's very important that the board understand that my opinions, are not a part of this. I'm stating facts, and most of those facts come from the presentation that was provided by our general manager at the July 13th, and I'll be providing many of those slides as well. So, and everything that I present has BPU on the slides, so it'll be coming from BPU and not necessarily from me personally, because if I gave my personal opinion or personal words, then I don't think because of my relationship with BPU over the past, I don't think that it would as a member of the board, it would be favorable because of the pilot. And so I have to yield to the facts as presented by the board, and I refrain from using my personal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, David, was that a motion?
I was waiting to see if Tom, I think that would be his purview. If
Yeah.
was that a,
If our council says that this has to be, that we have to make a motion, then I would say that we need, if that's the wish of the board, we would make the motion and move on.
Was what you said the motion?
Tom is motioned? Tom is motioned?
Did Tom make the motion?
Tom, did you make a motion?
I
Or
did
you're
not,
just saying-
I did.
Okay.
No,
I was.
I thought you
Board
made
member
a
Haley.
motion. That's what I'm asking you,
No,
David.
I asked him what his purview, what he thought we should do. That was my question to him as the
All
board
right,
president.
I'm going to make a motion that Mr. Wakes represents this board and uses the presentation from July 13th when he goes to the meeting on Thursday.
I'll second.
Okay, great. We've had a motion and a second for the representation of Mr. Wakes at tomorrow's meeting on behalf of the board for the presentation before the UG. If you would, roll call. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? All right, if you would, please, Ms. Lawson, roll call, please.
Roll call, Parker,
Aye.
Gonzalez,
Aye.
Groneman,
Aye.
Haley,
Aye.
Wakes,
Aye.
Mulvaney, Henry.
Aye.
That motion carries.
And let me just say, thank you to the board, and like I said, this is a concern that has been brought to our attention over and over again by citizens, and we keep telling them that, oh, they are meeting now. They have a date already in place of projected completion of April 2024. That date passed, and we're at where we are now. And so I have to give that update. And like I said, I'll just be sharing the same information and why customers are concerned when I provide that presentation. And I'll be using those same slides that Bill provided with maybe some updates to those slides that he provided in the June 13th meeting. So thank you.
Let me express my thanks for your working overtime in this capacity as a board member, Mr. Wakes, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
And Mr. Wakes, if you need anything else from me, I'll be here to support you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Did you have any, did you want to do a visitors?
Yes.
Yeah. Unless you had something further.
No,
are you
I was gonna
report?
go to, so for those that are either in person or online, we've just gone through our board agenda for the day. And I guess I would ask if there are anybody present that have any comments over what they heard. And if you do, please come up to the mic. If you're here present, you have 3 minutes. And thank you for coming to our board meeting.
My name is Pamela Penn Hicks.
Can you
Wyandotte
state your
County.
name and address, please?
Wyandotte County, Pamela Penn Hicks. This thing is so far away, it's hard for me to speak. Well, after listening to this tonight, I was reminded of children squabbling over who's going to have to do an unpleasant task. No, you first. No, you first. Until we get to the point where nothing gets done. I also felt that I was in the presence of gaslighting. Because we, last week, a couple of weeks ago, asked a question about how the rates were being considered for the following years after the presentation about how many LEAP applications we had. And this conversation tonight segues very perfectly into that. You talk about your financials with an increase in revenue, a decrease in operating cost, an increase in LEAP applications, and an increase in rates. And those things are what this community is asking about. How do we manage to balance the interest of not just the BPU or the UG, but the consumers who are paying those costs? There are some things that I have looked at with relationship to that, especially in your operating costs, that are out of sync with industry standards. For example, your healthcare benefits are out of balance with the industry. Those costs are passed on to the community. Anyway, I'm going to talk about a little bit. I don't want to move on from that because I don't want to, stay on that. But you all know what I'm talking about when it comes to the pressure that this community is under. You talked about your development projects. It made me think about all the lead pipes that are in sections of town and why we had to wait to get that attention. My house is 90 years old, and I've had to pay a lot of money to take the galvanized pipes out of my house. Fortunately, I was able to do that. But you're telling that community to just wait, pay home serve, pay the tax of being poor. I would like to see more attention paid to the areas of this town that have the age infrastructure. And if we have not gone yet after the infrastructure money to start addressing those basic needs
You
so that
have
our
30
children don't
seconds.
have lead poisoning in their system. As for the bifurcation, well, I don't think that BPU has to worry about UG tarnishing their reputation. Quite frankly, both are tarnished. And until we get a resolution on how we lower the rates, how we get our budgets in balance, how we stop paying such high salaries, how we turn the services on that we need
That
in
is
this
3
community,
minutes.
then I would think that that's the real problem, not whether or not you bifurcate a bill,
That was 3
because the
minutes.
money is still going to be coming out of the pockets of this community. So I'm interested in your presentation tomorrow, Mr. Lakes, and I'm interested in your relationship with the UG about how we can get this done. And I apologize, but since I'm the only one speaking here tonight, I thought I would take a little more time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Penn Hicks.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? I'm sorry.
Rob, is there anyone online?
Yes, sir, there's one hand raised. I don't have a name. I've enabled their ability to speak and I've asked them to unmute. They need to unmute before they can speak. They should have gotten a prompt on their computer and an audio prompt as well.
Does he know to unmute? Or she?
I have, it's just.
So the caller that's online is wishing to speak to us. If you can unmute on your end, we'd appreciate it.
They had it for a moment and then it remuted.
And so that's the last one. There's no one else present, and then this one here that we're unmuting. Okay. While you continue to do that, why don't we move on ahead with, and maybe we can go back if, Mr. Camp's able to do that. If we could go on to the board comments with your permission, unless there's something further.
Good. We
All
can
right.
come back.
And if you could, Rob, see if you could, if that's all right, we'll go out of sequence. Board comments, we start this evening, with, Rose Mulvaney Henry at large.
Thank you. I just want to thank I want to thank the members of the public who are here tonight, and continue to engage with us. From my perspective, it's really important. We need to hear you, and I don't always get the opportunity to hear this out in the community. So thank you for coming tonight, and bringing your concerns and certainly comments. Not everybody stays for the whole meeting, so thank you in addition for that. And to all the folks from the water department, thank you all very much for the update on all the various water construction projects. That is a significant amount of capital dollars that we're going to be putting into the water operations for certainly in the next couple of years. So I appreciate the detail that you guys provided on that. And that's all I have tonight, Mr. President Pro Tem.
Thank you, Ms. Mulvaney Henry. All right, with your forbearance, Ms. Gonzalez, we will go first and see if we can get them. Thank you. If you would, please. All right, if they call back in, if you would please let us know if there's any way to determine that you're, Mary Gonzalez, a member at large.
I just want to say to Steve and Chris and Brandon and Philip, thank you so much for the presentation. As Rose said, we have a lot of projects that are going on. Just get started on Area R. Be happy when that gets started. Also for the team that worked on the My Meter portal this whole weekend. I don't know every single one of your names. I know a couple of you that are here tonight, but just want to express my gratitude for that, and that so far it seems to be working without any issues or problems. So thanks to that team that spent the weekend here getting that ready to go.
Thank you. Brett Parker, District 3, are you?
I'm here. Thank
right.
you.
Any comments?
I'd echo the comments of my colleagues on the board. Appreciate the presentation tonight, and members of community for their comments, and thank you to staff and board colleagues for putting up with me virtually tonight as I'm a bit under the weather, but otherwise appreciate everyone's input tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Brandon. No, speak for all of us. We hope you're feeling
Mr.
better
President.
soon.
Caller's back.
Pardon me.
Caller's back.
All right, with your forbearance, Mr. Wakes, we will see if we can reconnect first with the caller that was there.
Oh, can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
You have 3 minutes to reflect something for what we've heard in tonight's meeting. And could we have your name, please, and a reference for your address?
Yes, sorry about that. My call got hung up. And my name is Alma Hall. I am a resident of Kansas City, Kansas. The questions are just questions. First of all, I want to say thank you to Ms. Rose Mulvaney for addressing some of the concerns I had previously about the money that is being donated and the accountability of where that money is going to support our community in needs. I would like to be a part of that when that information and those accounts are available to see that. I appreciate that, because sometimes when I go in and help, the question is always there. My other concern is, as I'm listening here and listening to the UG on meetings, I'm hearing about money being requested and money that the unified government and also Kansas City, Kansas, Wyandotte County and Kansas City, Kansas are gonna pay. And I appreciate that the collaboration between BPU and UG is gonna begin, hopefully with positive notes. But my question is, are there any discussions about the total amount that is being asked to the community to pay for all this bonds and tax revenues? Last week, I've heard about several buildings, 4 projects that are going in town. And with that money, that total amount was about $40 million, and that was supposedly discounted. And then tonight I'm hearing about 15 million, 3.7, 10 million. So my question is, hopefully eventually I'll get an answer, is when is the consideration, when is all that tally, when are all this money gonna be calibrated and presented to our community? Because it's a lot, and I'm not sure if because we're looking into progress, we're forgetting that people in our community sometimes are barely making it. And then the expenses and projects. And then also, is there any way once that money is calibrated or totaled, you can share that?
You have
to
30 seconds.
all of us? And then the companies that are going to be contracted to work in these projects, I hear Black and Beach, Burns, and McDonald's, and all this other. But are you considering to going into maybe local companies and also minority-owned companies for future projects? And that is all my questions. I am excited to hear what's going to happen with tomorrow's presentation. The clarification about the pilot program.
And that is time.
Interesting to hear today. Thank you for your time, and I apologize for my phone.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Hall. I don't know if, I do know that we do a budget every year and that many of the line items that you have, this is David Haley, and that the budget does outline the anticipated costs, and there's follow-up following years for what was actually spent, and there are those accounts, and I think once they're passed, they're pretty much, are those public? I don't know if those are
Yeah,
public. I'll ask Mr. Johnson about that. Also, I'll ask him about your question on MBE, WBE, and local hires as well.
Okay, so, I mean, there was a lot packed into that 3 minutes, and I would say in terms of projects that the UG is currently doing, or future projects that they may be rolling out, the UG has a separate budget, whole separate operations than the Board of Public Utilities. So I can't quite speak for them on that, because I'm not familiar enough with what you said tonight without having more specific details around what those projects are. But in terms of BPU, you know, all of our meetings, all the information we're providing is public, and our whole budget process is public. On a quarterly basis, I ask staff to come in and report on any number of activities, and a lot of those are projects that's been approved by the board for our budget for that fiscal year, and then we're providing feedback and updates on here's where the money's going, here's what the projects consist of, and here's how the community will benefit. So I'm hoping that you appreciated those water conversations tonight, because that is a prime example of here is where the public's dollars are going to improve infrastructure across our city in addressing the most aging infrastructure projects first. And some of the federal dollars that we collected, in addition to what we're paying with local dollars, there's a huge infusion of federal dollars that we were able to get for the first time in this utility that I'm aware of to help pay for some of these capital needs. In terms of local vendors, minority vendors, I would say look at our sustainability report, because that was something that was published not long ago. I think there's going to be, in fact, I'm sure there is a newsletter, or not a newsletter, but our annual financial report will speak to some of that. And I do have scheduled for later this year our purchasing director to come in and talk about here's how we're spending money and how much of that is spent on local minority vendors. But I would say this, you know, also keep this in mind. I mean, there are businesses that we can certainly used in Wyandotte County, and we try to. And one of my goals is to try to increase how much money goes back to our local and minority vendors. Okay, but in addition to that, we've been having meetings with some vendors because some of the needs we have as a electric and water utility, some of our vendors can't really support all of our needs. So part of those meetings is trying to close the gap between what our needs are and what they could provide in terms of services and products. And then if they can't, my hope is those conversations are going further in assisting them on how they can get better prepared to support our utility. But there's a lot of money we spend on services. There's a lot of money we spend on products, infrastructure, and things along those lines. Because that if you look at any electric or water utility, it's very expensive maintaining systems, and then we have to have qualified vendors and qualified contractors, and also local suppliers or suppliers outside of our local economy to help maintain the services that we are providing back to our public. So I'll talk to our purchasing director and see and try to schedule a time when we can get her in to talk. But thank you for your questions.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Hall, again, for your call in. To continue with our board comments, we're with Mr. Wakes, Stevie Wakes.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Haley. Let me go ahead and continue, Dr. Hall, since I am the board member that represents the unified government. If you were listening to the presentation that was made by the developers and UG staff, there's a mix of dollars. They talked about industrial revenue bonds. They talked about loans, and they also talked about grants. So all of that was not, I think most of it was industrial revenue bonds. And I think that would probably help you to determine which dollars are coming out of, and I think my questions, as you listen to my questions regarding the risk factor regarding the industrial revenue bonds, that question was answered by them as well. So I think going back to that recording will probably help you to better understand how that money mix was included with the dollars that are being spent for those projects. But as far as my comments are concerned, thank you to UG staff, particularly those of the water who come out to make the presentations regarding the various improvements. Reliability is important to our customers, and I really appreciate all the work that you're doing and the presentation that you made, and the relationship. Thank you for being able to forge those relationships with Water One in case we have an emergency where we need to tap into them. I think that's really important for reliability as well. So thank you for maintaining that relationship as we go forward. And then again, want to thank the board for allowing me to present on your behalf. And I hope I don't embarrass you, but I hope that I'll provide a presentation that will be helpful to those who elected us into office. I want to also thank Dr. Hall and to Ms. Penn for your presence today and for your questions and remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Wakes, First District, and also for representing us at tomorrow's UG meeting. Board President, Second District, Mr. Groneman, Tom Groneman, do you have any comments this evening you'd like to share, sir?
Yeah. Just a couple quick things. I want to thank Mr. Robert Camp for the work that he does in the audio and video portions to allow us to attend these meetings remotely. It's something that we haven't been able to do, maybe a year now, maybe a little more, but it's something that I know that he spends a lot of time, his time, and I just really appreciate the fact that he's here and being able to do that so that we can attend remotely. I also want to thank Mr. Wakes for agreeing to step up and make that presentation to the mayor and the commissioner on updating the BPU, what we're doing. They asked, I'm glad that he was able to do it so that we didn't have to put it off for another month until myself or somebody was back and able to also attend. And also, I'd like to thank you, David, for stepping up and being the mayor pro tem and in my place while I'm recuperating. So thank you, and thank the staff. That's all I have.
Let me say, President Groneman, I think we're all very anxious to see you have a speedy recovery and return to this capacity, and hope you do have a speedy recovery. Thank you so much. As for my comments, being brief, I appreciate, as always, the staff giving the update, Chris, and that they did earlier. Great presentations, most informative. Also, that we will have some representation on the tomorrow regarding the further separation between the bills and how that should go on both the UG before the UG. The also the update on the utility funds, that was the other issue. I'm glad that we're trying to get some of that data back. Thank the people that came and spoke, that presented this evening earlier, that spoke from the public about the concerns that were raised. I still want to get some follow-up regarding the dormant plants and how those contracts are going. And not tonight, because we're all just kind of trying to catch our breaths, but those 2 plants that are closed and what we're doing to utilize them, to get them leased out, or what the status of that is, that continues to be a concern of mine, as well as how the lobby's working now, the initial soft opening and what those stats will be. We'll save that if we can for next meeting, but I did want to once again raise those issues. And also to see if we might look at some of our personnel policies. There have been some issues that have come up regarding the continuity of sick and PTO, personal time off and leave policies, which is not an issue that comes before the board, but at some point in time, I'd like to see our rules and regs and have some kind of continuity in those policies. Been a pleasure, really, somewhat. Look forward to President Groneman coming back, but I don't have any further comments at this time. And with nothing else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Wakes, I so move.
Second.
All right. If we could, please, Ms. Lawson, roll call.
Roll call, Parker,
Aye.
Gonzalez,
Aye.
Groneman. Groneman. Haley,
Aye.
Wakes,
Aye.
Mulvaney, Henry.
Aye.
That motion carries. This meeting is adjourned.
Good job.